Today we're playing Manuscript. It is a short, creepy horror game about an archives worker who is sent an encrypted manuscript according to the game description. So that sounds very exciting. We are speedrunning this game because I might have broken it last time. Second try. Drag this over here. Also gonna read this email real quick. Hi. Sorry I couldn't make it in person. We're still excavating in the northern Sahara. I think we're getting close to something very interesting. Not much in the way of finds yet, but in one of the houses I found a stack of manuscripts in an unknown language. I believe it's a cipher. I hear you've got a new computer decoder. See if you can figure out what it says. Yep. I'm sure. I'm sure I can. I'll do that right for you. I'll do it just for you, man. Drag this in here. Drag this in here. Prep that. Gonna read this real quick. Decrypt. Gonna wait for it to load. I'm gonna just say that there's some words in here that I will not be able to read, and I will apologize in advance. Well, first we're gonna read the console. Info, press left mouse button to open the text. The decryption module has been launched. Document analysis. A non-standard encryption algorithm has been discovered. And key takeaway. Application of an alternative method of deciphering. The document has been successfully decrypted. So, I must wonder, did they use frequency analysis for this? Because I assume if it's like an easy cipher and not like anything, no shifting based on some kind of key phrase, maybe that's probably, if it's just a regular substitution cipher, usually people just use frequency analysis, I think. Apparently my inflamed mind, tormented by the scorching madness of the heat, is losing the fragile line between reality and desert mirages. Perhaps the relentless sun is to blame for my doubts about thinking. More frighteningly, unknown forces alien to the human mind have woven a sign of terror into my consciousness. I am sitting in a pitiful hut, surrounded by earthen walls that are about to crush me. The rays of the midday sun come through the tiny window, bringing with them grains of sand. I try to pull myself together, but thousands thoughts scurry around my head like a flock of bats flitting from corner to corner. Is this really real? I've heard hundreds of legends, fairy tales, but that door, it keeps me on my toes. It's real, it's alive, it's driving me crazy. Its presence can be felt everywhere. There's no escaping it. It's too late to go back to the fort. The goddamn sun will kill me halfway, or I'll get lost in the vast sands and drop dead. I can only wait for my friends. I left them a note when I left with the native. They should be here. I need to relax, get my mind right. I haven't touched the diary in 3 days, apart from a couple of notes on the Aboriginal language. Writing has always made me feel better, but probably won't make me feel better now. Just gonna scan the next document. Place one document in. Do not place multiple. You will cause issues. It all began with a caravan reached Fort Cross. For me, a man who was crossing the desert for the first time, the 2 months journey was definitely a challenge, full of hardships and unexpected difficulties. However, it was still a month's grueling trek to the mysterious African kingdom, of which we had heard only vague rumors. At the fort, we stopped to replenish our supplies and let our weary bodies rest. In the evening, sitting by the fire and listening to the stories of the Bedouins, whose language I had learned in a couple of months, I had the opportunity to get down to business, or rather to describe a beast unknown to us Europeans. One of the oldest and most respected Bedouins in the caravan told me that there was an oasis not far from the fort. Sometimes the Bedouin has seen sand cats coming from the side and hunting lizards near the fort. From what he said, the sand cats are like the common cats, differing only in color and half their size. I had not met the Bedouin anywhere except at Fort Cross. I'm gonna scan this. Place only one in. Last time I placed multiple in, and then it broke. Pretty sure that's why it broke. Scan 3. Decrypt. The next morning, in spite of my companion's misgivings, I set out for the oasis. The journey was not long, and I promised to return by sunset. Now looking back, I regret not listening to my more experienced companions. The oasis was a pitiful semblance of its former grandeur. A small, almost dried-up lake, a few stunted palms and wisps of grass were all that remained of the place. I nestled in the shade of a withering date palm, hoping to see something alive, but the desert remained still, the wind lifting the sand in unknown patterns. I headed north, expecting to find tracks or dens of sandcats. The sun, having reached its zenith, was burning hot and driving me crazy. As I climbed the dune, I saw a man in the lowlands. A shiver ran through my body. A lone wanderer in the desert is a rare and frightening sight. He stood motionless, staring at me. Lower down, I could see his haggard face, covered in wrinkles and dust. His skin, black and withered, seemed about to crumble into grains of sand. And his gaze was full of horror and despair. Only then did I realize I was an Aborigine. I think it's he was and not like I, for reasons that would become incredibly clear later on. I slowly brought the fur water to his lips. He flinched and then clung to the fur, gulping greedily. Scan this. Now place only one document in. It's very dangerous if you place multiple in. It's a poor decision. By sunset, I brought the stranger to the oasis, fed and watered him. He studied with me with curiosity, probably seeing a white man for the first time. Previously, I had met with tribes of Africa and even knew a little bit of their language, so I tried to talk to the Aborigine. After a couple hours, the Aborigine relaxed and began to be amenable to learning. His language turned out to be quite similar to other African dialects. It was very difficult for me, and only by slow sounds and gestures I managed to learn the name of the stranger. His name was Kor. When the Aborigine said this, he drew a spear in the sand and pointed to himself. Afterward, waving his arms in the manner of a storm, he tried to tell me how I had been lost in the desert. Then Savage waved in the direction from which we had came and called me to follow him. I could see that fear had not yet left Karom. He wanted to go home as soon as possible. I didn't know what I wanted more: the opportunity to discover an unknown tribe, or to go back to the fort for help. After all, Karom was a native who could have tricked me or led me into a trap, but fate rarely gives second chances. I had to go. We rested, drew muddy, stagnant water from the lake, and set off. Under a palm tree, I left a note to my friends, telling them that I had met a savage and was going north with him, and asking them to follow me. I feel like that's kind of mean, calling him a savage. I don't know if that's the last page, it might be, so I'm gonna read this first, in case whatever the ending is triggers upon scanning the last page, or interacting with the last page, and not just reading it. Who knows? I don't know what's gonna cause everything to go terrible. We spent the night in a stone cave, where only the faint light of the stars shone through the cracks in the stone. The air was heavy and musty, and there was a muffled rumbling in the darkness, as if the ancient rock were breathing under its own weight. We collapsed to sleep on the bare, icy rocks. There was no strength left for anything else. At dawn, we moved on, swallowing the last remnants of food and sharing the warm water among us. Karom, slowly pacing ahead, kept saying the same thing, Ashuddar. I didn't know the exact meaning, but with each repetition, Karom's voice grew quieter, as if he were trying to convince himself that we were coming soon. As the sun rose to its zenith again, An oasis surrounded by dozens of huts appeared on the horizon. Soon we stepped to the outskirts of the village, where the natives were crowded together, staring at me in horror. They were whispering, casting glances at me, full of superstitious fear. No one dared to approach. Grom murmured something quietly in their language. After a few tense moments, the horror of the natives changed to a kind of wild, childlike admiration. They ran up to me, laughing, circling me, tugging at my blonde hair. Grom led me through the village to the shaman's hut. Outside was a crowd of several dozen savages. An old man, thin, wrinkled, and blind, was waiting for us inside. He listened to Grom, then scrutinized my face with bony fingers and muttered something. Grom explained to me that I could stay in the village until the next full moon. In the evening, the natives held a feast in honor of Grom's return. They sang, danced, and gave me a murky, sour drink that made me pleasantly dizzy. Toward nightfall, I was assigned an empty hut and a girl who, according to a local custom, should brighten the night of the guest, so I was not the first stranger to set foot on this land. We're gonna get sacrificed. Oh no, there's still more documents. I thought that was gonna be the last one. How did I break it before? What the heck? I'm gonna place the next one in then. Continue reading. Decrypt. Go forth. The girl's name is Arella. She was young, beautiful, and her dark skin, not yet hardened by the sun, seemed silky. She didn't try to talk to me, only laughed, flirted in every opportunity, touched my face, and never took her eyes off my green eyes. When darkness fell, Arella propped the wooden door of the hut with a heavy stone and lay down beside me. During the evening in the village, I visited several houses. I noticed that each hut had a massive boulder at the entrance. Could there be animals here that could break into a house? In the night, I was awakened by a knocking sound, muffled, ominous. Someone was banging his knuckles on the door of a hut made of pieces of wood and layers of palm leaves. I stirred alarmedly, waking Arella. Without moving, I peered through the cracks in the walls, trying to see the stranger, but there was no one under the moon of the light. Arella stared at me incomprehensibly, but after a moment she grabbed me by the neck and tucked me into her chest, not letting me move. There was a knock on the door again and again. When the insolent man realized it was useless, he tried to push the door open, but it was thwarted by a boulder. The knocking stopped. Creepy. Not my problem. I don't care. Okay, so I'm gonna take it that it is gonna be like based on the scan and not like... Did I read this? Is that the last thing I read? I'm losing track. I woke up alone. I tried to think about what had happened last night. Arella was undoubtedly terrified, not because of the knocking, but because of what she saw in me. And I couldn't explain her behavior otherwise, but I knew something was wrong. Shaking off the remnants of sleep, I went to Karom, the only one who could, however vaguely, shed some light on what had happened. On the way, natives whispered at the sight of me and looked at me with a look that was not the delight of yesterday, but rather a look of pity and sadness. I found Karom in his hut. His lips curved into a smile at my appearance, but there was no joy and relief in it, only shame and embarrassment, as if he were standing before a condemned man on the point of execution. I asked him what had happened that night. His answer was a chaos of incoherent words and gestures, full of primal fear. As far as I could understand, I had been cursed by some ancient power whose name was taboo to speak. Only a shaman could tell me the details. I went to him together, and what followed was only my paraphrase, an attempt to understand what Kurama told me from the shaman's words. Those to whom Parak comes are doomed to perdition. No one but you can hear his knocking. Parak will haunt you for eternity until you open the door for him, or until his ancient, inscrutable game bores him. he will find a loophole in your mind, for he is neither beast nor man, but the spirit of the desert, charging a terrible tribute for the right to live in it. Long ago, he dwelt in a hut on the outskirts of the desert, where he took his first victim. My advice to you is to run. Run away right now, back to where you came from, and maybe Peruk will spare you. There's no other way. So, at least the spirit of the desert did. Outside the desert has no power. But then, who was the door knocking from? That was not supposed to happen. Oh god, oh no. I just want to take this off. The shaman's story was no doubt born of the same superstitious fear as the other savage legends that frightened children at campfires. I asked Karam to take me to Peruk's hut. He resisted for a long time, his face contorted in a grimace of fear and panic. But finally, he surrendering to my stubbornness, he led me through the oasis to this place where the houses had once stood. There, at the foot of a rocky hill, was a hut covered with sand. Karam, muttering something about prohibitions, refused to go further and left me alone. At first glance, the hut looked no different from the other ruins scattered over this inhospitable land. Earthen walls cracked by the sun, a hole in the roof that had been corroded by time. The door was almost completely buried underneath the sand, and the only way in was through a gaping hole in the roof. Gathering my courage, I climbed up the loose slope, and after a last moment of doubt, went down inside. The darkness of the hut was unnaturally thick, as if it were absorbing the light itself. Sand filled half the space as if it were alive, forcing me to crawl. The cracked walls seemed to whisper something in the forgotten language. Gathering my courage, I climbed up the loose slope, and after a last moment of doubt, went down inside. The darkness of the hut was unnaturally thick, as if it were absorbing the light itself. Sand filled half the space as if it were alive, forcing me to crawl. The cracked... Why is this repeated? And then I saw it. The door. It didn't belong to the hut. Built right into the rock. It stood untouched, as if time and sand had not dared to touch it. My heart raced as I clung to the rotten beams and crawled toward it. The door was made of dark red wood, but it wasn't just wood. No, it was something else. Its surface seemed to breathe, pulsing with subtle movements like the skin of some sleeping monster. I reached out and touched it. The wood was alive. It was slimy, disgusting, like it was covered in a film of decaying flesh, and then the smell hit my nose. Rottenness. Raw meat, all mixed into one stupefying, unbearable stench. Panic seized me, a primal animal fear rooted in the darkest corners of my mind. My body clenched in anticipation of unspeakable horror. And at that moment there was a knock at the door. The knock. The same knock I'd heard last night. Then it, whatever was lurking on the other side, tried to come out. The door jerked open. Again and again, someone was beating inside, desperately trying to break through to me. I don't remember how I got out of the damn cabin. I ran without looking back, shuddering at every rustle, afraid it was coming for me, and even now as I write these lines, I can hear it, the knocking. Not here. I'm gonna hope this doesn't break. I'm gonna scan it again. Okay, so if we just scan it again, we don't have to worry about it being broken. I found myself in my hut, my mind exhausted and torn, clung to the last shreds of rationality, trying to comprehend the incomprehensible. Was there really something behind that door, in the depths of the ancient hut? Was this Peruk not just a fiction of savages, but a real monster, hungry for my soul, or is it all just a delusion of my inflamed mind? The shaman said I should flee, leave this cursed land before it turned its blind but all-seeing eye upon me. If my companions do not arrive tonight, I will set out at dawn tomorrow. Perhaps Karam will agree to accompany me. But even now, in this hut seemingly safe, I hear it knocking, quiet, impatient, knowing I'm here. Okay. I woke up in total darkness, my back leaning against the cold, uneven wall of the hut. How did I fall asleep? I don't remember. The moonlight, pale and ominous, shone through the gaps in the roof, casting ghostly patterns on the floor that seemed alive. I tossed and turned on a stiff bed of palm leaves, which rustled as if whispering something to me in a forgotten language. The thought that had been circling around me since waking up finally flashed through my mind like hellfire. Boulder. I had forgotten to prop the door open. When did we prop it closed? I'm confused. With a rock. In the same instant, a chilling fear gripped my body like invisible chains. I felt I was being watched, not just watching, but studying me like a predator studies its prey. Any movement, even the slightest, could be fatal. I froze, barely breathing, trying to figure out how to get up and prop the door open without being seen, but before I could do anything, the ground beneath me cracked. A cracking sound, like the roar of an ancient beast, echoed in the silence. I felt the ground fall away from under my feet, and the next moment I was plunged into darkness. The crackling didn't stop, it grew, filling the space around me. I was falling, but not downward, but somewhere to the side, into an abyss that seemed to have no end. Suddenly there were rocks all around me. Where the door of the hut had once been, there's now a gaping hole, a red door. Its surface rippled as if it were alive. Not my problem. Just gonna hit scan again. Should I open it? I'm overly curious, yeah. Okay. It's cool, I guess. Not gonna do anything about it. Oh, it got closed. It's like, The door was different. No, not just different, but turned inside out, as if the very fabric of reality had been distorted, revealing to me its inner side, the one that was hidden from mortal eyes. It was the same door, but its essence, its true nature was now exposed to me, and behind that sinister facet, something was beating, something that hungered for my destruction, that lashed out at me with unquenchable rage, like an ancient demon awakened from a centuries-old slumber. I couldn't move. My body, shackled with chilling terror, refused to obey. I just stood there, submissive and helpless, waiting for the inevitable end. My whole being clung to the faint hope that this was only a dream, a nightmare created by my tortured mind. I bit my tongue until I bled, desperate to awaken, but the horror wouldn't let me go. It was too real, too tangible to be an illusion. And that's when I heard it, a knock, a damned, sickening thud that came from the door like the heartbeat of some monstrous creature. The door shook, cracking under the pressure of whatever it was behind it. It was close, so close that I could feel its breath, cold and stinking, coming through the cracks. And suddenly the door opened, not fully, only for a moment, but it was enough. I saw nothing but an impenetrable darkness that seemed to swallow up the light itself. I could feel it with my whole being, with every cell in my body. I felt it looking at me. Its gaze was coated in ice, and it was reaching inside the very depths of my soul, turning it inside out. I knew this was the end. This guy... Oh, we're dead. Scan it again. Hey, buddy. You gonna kill me? Oh, nice pulse. Hey, how you doing? How you doing, man? I'm being eaten. Wow. Thanks for playing. I get this feeling if I hit exit, it's just gonna kick me out of the game, but I'm gonna finish talking first because I don't think you deserve to see my desktop wallpaper. So, I do like the writing in this because it sets up the hook nicely, and the environment changes tied to the last few pages are very well done. Once again, I'd highly suggest proofreading everything. Even more so if the entire game is built around reading a really, really long manuscript. Because there are some tiny mistakes that do actually have some impact on understanding the story. Like Kor versus Krom, or I versus he, While the game is obviously a slow burn, there's definitely more that they could have done to set up the tension ahead of time before the knocking starts. Like ambient sounds with trees knocking on the window quietly, or random house creaking sounds. I'll also note that this game is extremely quiet and that I barely heard anything aside from the purposefully scary noises. But I'll turn it up for you guys. Everything, not just the scary noises. As for the story itself, what I think happened is that everyone's in the village has been targeted by this thing at once in their lives, hence why they all have boulders to block their doors. Kurom was likely the last person to be targeted before the writer, and that's why he ran off. Then the writer gets targeted, he writes down the name of the entity in his diary, and then somehow our protagonist gets targeted in the process of deciphering the manuscript. What I suspect is the justification for the player character getting attacked is that the entity has an all-seeing eye and its name is taboo. By writing the name down, it becomes capable of detecting whoever reads its name, and so the writer accidentally created an info hazard. I do also wish that there was a little more to the gameplay besides dragging papers in and out of the scanner and then hitting buttons, like a minigame or something for decoding the text. But I think it'd be engaging enough as a horror game if they had built more tension during the first few pages. That's all of my thoughts on the game. Thanks for watching.